And let's talk a little bit. I wanted to get off my chest what I was thinking about both Chelsea and United, because I'm not a Chelsea fan. I gotta say this from the beginning. I'm not a Chelsea supporter. I'm definitely not a United supporter. I hate United because I'm a Liverpool supporter. And quite frankly, this season has been really funny, And not like that you have to laugh at how bad officiating is, even with VAR funny, Not even talking about like Liverpool seemingly finding every single way that they can to drop points every single week, because I'm over that, because that's not funny anymore, dude. That's seriously I'm getting over that very fast. First of all, I want to talk about Ruben Amorim saying things that no employed person should ever be saying at a press conference. I want to talk about Maresca's emotional implosion, which is leading to Chelsea's season implosion, which has now led to them hiring a manager that they're absolutely not going to keep. And I am willing to bet money on that if anybody wants to take me up on that bet. And with United, they're so lost, they don't even know that they're playing on a football pitch anymore. They should go to that cricket ground I think they have next to them or something, because they're completely lost. So, let's start with Amorim. And I think with Amorim, normally you want a manager to talk, but with Amorim, every time he got in front of the microphone, if I were a United fan, I'd be like, oh my God, please say less, dude. What? Just shut up. Shut your mouth. Because, first of all, Amorim seemed genuinely shocked that results matter in the Premier League at a club like United. Like, he seemed like genuinely shocked that it mattered to get results and get wins. Because, he was statistically the worst manager that United have had in decades. And that's statistically, he was way worse than David. I'm perpetually playing for a draw Moyes. He was worse than Ragnick, when everybody just pretended it was like some sort of failed consultancy for a little bit, Amorim was actively losing games, football matches, while like explaining afterwards why it wasn't really his fault. It was like a masterclass in masochism. Every single week was just like another hostage standoff. He would just say things like, I need players who fit my ideas, when he's approved like half of the players. He's personally approved half of the players that he's playing for. Saying things like, the structure isn't what I expected. And he's talking into microphones at press conferences held at structures by the people that are employing him. Like, And then he's saying things like, I was told I'd be manager, even though he signed a contract that literally says he's going to be head coach. And that whole thing about being the manager was absolutely like bizarrely fascinating. It's this delusion about having to be the manager was just like genuinely just like, what world are you living in, dude? This is 2026, first of all. Like, nobody is the manager, Nobody is the manager unless you're playing EAFC manager mode, dude. Like, what are you thinking about, It's like that scene in Major League when Roger Dorn, when Corbin Burnson, who puts himself, he's a general manager now, and then he activates himself as the player, because he wants to relive his some sort of like weird heyday, like, you know. And instead of putting in the movie, they put Dorn to take one for the team because that means in baseball to get hit by a pitch because they had no idea what else to do with him because he was useless, you know. United just took Amorim out to pasture and put him out of his misery. Because United hired Amorim to coach the team and implement a style, not audition for the 1990s, bro. You know? Because Amorim spent half the time explaining that he really didn't have control, which is like an incredible thing to say when he's losing. You know what I mean? It's an incredible thing to say when he's losing. You know, and that's so different from Maresca, because Maresca, like we all just watched, I feel like, a therapy, like a conversation between Maresca, what should have been a conversation between Maresca and his therapist just happened in front of like all of us in press conferences. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of tragic, you know, because Maresca was working at Chelsea, like the Maresca project. You know, you heard a lot about it. And then finally you're like, oh, yeah, it's working because it's a system. You know, it's that system that everybody's playing, that the Pep Guardiola tiki-taka. I mean, Arne Slot's playing it. You know, so it's a system with patterns. And he's got young players who are improving. And I mean, worst of all, as an opposing fan, there was competence at Chelsea because before that, they were just languishing mid-table. They had, I mean, not European football going on. They were kind of lost, you know? And Maresca stepped in and brought structure and brought competence and brought patterns and brought young players improving. And even though they're spending lots of money on players, the players were working for a change, you know? And then December 7th happened, you know? And he got in front of a microphone at a press conference, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but not really, because he said this with the bottom of his heart, that the last 24 to 48 hours were the worst of his life. Like, and I was like, damn, dude, like, at first I thought something happened in his personal life. I was like, oh, shit. But it was reportedly about medical advice conflicts that had been going on between Chelsea's medical staff and training demands. And I'm like, what does that mean? First of all, it's a bit dramatic to say that's the worst 24 to 48 hours of your life. Because... And the Reece James thing was going on, which Reece James hadn't played 90 minutes in over 2 or 3 years. And Maresca did that 3 times. Played him back to back to back 3 times against the advice of Chelsea medical staff. Cole Palmer, this thing happened with Cole Palmer, but Maresca lost. Cole Palmer was substituted by Maresca at the advice of Chelsea medical staff, and the fans got on to Maresca for that. And they chanted at him, "You don't know what you're doing," you know? So I think what happened is Maresca wanted to push his players or certain players, and the club said, absolutely not. We got way too much money wrapped up in some of these guys. And Maresca took it spiritually. You know, like he just realized, you know, that pain and suffering will always exist in this world in that moment for some reason, you know? But, you know, here's the thing is and the difference in Chelsea and United in general is Chelsea players are more used to the chaos. And even Liam Gallagher, who was the interim manager, I don't know if it was 1 game or 2 games, but even Liam Gallagher in the build-up to the City match said that the Chelsea players are used to it. And that's the one thing that you can say about Chelsea is that they sack managers like it's a subscription service that, that they have. Managers are us, because I'm sure there's got to be a clause in players' contracts which say something to the effect of, we may sack our manager at any time, and this may or may not affect your playing time. And in fact, the players, after picking up a draw, the Chelsea players, after picking up a draw at the Etihad, brought over Liam Gallagher to get an applause from the away supporters for that late draw, because the players felt bad for the dude. They felt bad for the dude. But the annoying part about Chelsea is that I think they're going to be fine, because chaos is nothing to them. And they've kind of established who it is and what they are, and a little bit of what their identity is. So now, with that being said, they hired Liam Rosenor to a 5.5-year deal, which is hilarious on so many levels. First level is that nobody thinks he's going to be there 5 years. First of all, not Chelsea supporters. That journalists definitely don't. Even Rosenor's own reflection in the mirror got scared and about getting fired way too early, and said he wasn't ready to be at the match today. So I hope he sat back and he learned something about Chelsea, because and there's nothing that he would have learned. Just him sitting back just kind of shows that I don't know, just to give him a 5-year contract, 5.5-year contract, it's like a symbolic move of Chelsea being like, oh, relax, we're stable. But doing that in the most unhinged way imaginable. I mean, just, yeah. It's crazy. But that's the message that Chelsea are saying, and it's not just to Rosenor. It's a message to whoever it's going to be after Rosenor, which definitely won't be 5.5 years from now. And to whichever manager they hire in the future, they're saying, you're not going to run this club, and you're not going to fight this structure, and you're going to coach, or you're going to go. And that's going to scare off established egos and quote unquote serial winners and managers who want the authority, which again, Chelsea don't care, because they want operators and not emperors, because that's Chelsea's identity, right? That's kind of always been Chelsea's identity, even back in the previous ownership, because the flip side is there's United right now who have no style, and they have no philosophy, and they have no clue as to what they want. I mean, here are the coaching tactical identities they've tried. Here are the coaching tactical identities they've tried. They've tried counterattacking. They've tried pressing. They've tried possession. They even tried vibes for a little bit. But nothing sticks, because nothing is planned, They're exactly where Chelsea were when Chelsea hired Maresca to do the exact same thing that United need right now. Because, frankly, United are a mid-table club right now without even any European football. They have no identity, and it's hard for them to recruit around an identity when they don't have one, And so here's the big elephant in the room, right? Does Maresca make sense at United? Um, and the honest truth to that is honestly probably not. Because United definitely don't have the players to do it right now. They would need to fundamentally, make a lot of moves. But here is the truth is anything makes more sense than doing nothing. Because that's, at least Maresca would come in and install an identity and force his style and break things properly instead of half breaking them. And right now United they're not rebuilding. They're kind of scrambling and rearranging through the rubble of the Amorim bomb, And United, 2-2 to Burnley, Benjamin Sesko brace, at least they didn't embarrass themselves any further. At least they're still clawing around. At least they're above Chelsea now. But it's going to be interesting to see where they go. Where are you going to go, United? What is your long-term move? And for Chelsea, let's see how long their long-term project lasts, because the words long-term and manager at Chelsea do not go together. They do not go together whatsoever. So anyway, leave your thoughts below. What do you think? Who do you think is the right manager long-term for United, and how long do you think Rosenor will last at Chelsea? And like and subscribe. New channel, lots of content being planned.